if you enjoy life and you want to live and you know that people are here counting on you to be around, do your job as men and take care of yourself.
Welcome to Baptist Health Talk, a podcast on all things healthcare, powered by Baptist Health South Florida, your trusted source for healthcare prevention and wellness.
I'm your host, Willard Shepard, and welcome back to a new episode of Baptist Health Talk, where we dig into the real issues concerning your health. In today's episode, we explore a topic that doesn't always get a lot of attention that it deserves: men and our health. We'll be taking this on with a man that really doesn't need any introduction, professional basketball Hall of Famer and community activist Alonzo Mourning. We're also joined by Dr. Sergio Tierrablanca, family medicine physician here at Baptist Health. Thanks to both of you for coming down. First, Zoe, we've all heard your story and what you've been through. You look great. How are you doing?
I appreciate it. I'm doing excellent. Will, it's really good seeing you again as well. I'm happy to be a part of this conversation. And I think it's really important that, we change the narrative as men and we start talking a little bit more about our health, So this is going to give us an opportunity to kind of send some messages out to our listeners, about being proactive with their health.
When you got your diagnosis, I'm sure, and I've heard you say that was shocking to you.
Right.
But how have you moved through this process to get to where you are now?
Yeah, well, by the grace of God, I'm here, because I made sure that my health was a priority. I did not ignore the signs and the symptoms, and even though, one of the ailments that I had to deal with, was prostate cancer. It was asymptomatic. And I didn't have any symptoms or signs or what have you, but because I was part of a conversation of men,
right,
that talked about a urologist, which at the time when it was mentioned, I didn't even know what a urologist was. This was 5 years ago. And I was like, man, excuse my ignorance, but I grabbed my phone and found out what it was, and they said, hey, man, we got this great urologist, And so I explored it. I went and saw him just because I hadn't seen one, and I'm a middle-aged man. I was 50 years old, and I knew it was something that probably needed to do, just based on intuition and understanding that, hey, I got to get out in front of this, because as a trained professional athlete, we always did preseason physicals and we did postseason physicals, so it was all a part of my life for quite some time. And then, I went to this urologist and and I was fine. Everything was good. He noticed my PSA was a little elevated, but he didn't bother too much. And then I found out what PSA was. And Doc, you can kind of explain a little bit more about what that is to the listeners, but the long and short of it is, years progressed, my urologist identified that the PSA was escalating, and he ordered an MRI, and then he ordered a biopsy. And then they found out, by the grace of God, I caught it early, found out that I had stage 3 prostate cancer. It was still encapsulated, and it hadn't spread to my lymph nodes and my organs. And then I had the ability to find out what type of treatment I needed from that perspective, and I identified that this particular time that it was best for me to take it out instead of doing, the radiation therapy or the seeds or what have you. And then here I am a year later, cancer-free, by the grace of God. And I'm thankful for that.
You look fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Keep up with it, and we know that you will. And doctor, unfortunately, every 2 minutes, someone is diagnosed with prostate cancer here in the country. Every 15 minutes, a person loses their life. Zoe's been on a journey, and because of who he is, so many people were around him to support him, which I know you feel very grateful for.
Extremely.
When a person comes forward and they get this diagnosis, an entire family, an entire medical community is needed.
Yes, absolutely. So, family and friends, they're, definitely the people we surround ourselves with the most, right? They're the ones that typically, when they notice something that's off about you, they're the ones that are going to catch that. Because sometimes, as men, we get so busy, we get so caught up in life that we even fail to pay attention to ourselves. And who's the one who catches that? Our loved ones, those closest to us. So they're definitely our biggest advocates, for sure.
Zoe, if you had to go back and cut time in half here, and you're 25 and you're at the height of your NBA career, what would you say to yourself about managing what later on came to you in your life?
Well, Will, I'm going to tell you, I think I did a pretty good job of managing and taking good care of myself. I mean, I ate right. I was in tip-top shape, so I worked out and what have you, But one of the things that I would probably prioritize more than anything is understanding the impact that foods have on your body. Understanding that. I didn't understand that until way later, because inflammation in the body is what causes a lot of the diseases, the dis-ease, if you break the word down, dis-ease, so you start, taking in different foods, that causes inflammation in the body, cutting that out. Also, understanding the foods that actually heal your body as well, because foods can kill you and they can heal you. And it's amazing. We were talking earlier, about how when we're younger, we develop so many different eating habits based on our heritage or our culture and what have you. And then we continue to eat that way as we get older and we don't make the adjustments. And as we get older, our body changes in a way, and Doc, you can kind of speak to this, and you can't eat as many fried foods, you can't eat as much dairy, or you can't eat it at all anymore. You can't continue to do that because it does cause processed foods and all of that stuff. It causes inflammation in the body, So if it was one of the things that I could change, I would have probably developed better eating habits from that perspective, because I know the impact that foods has on your body. And on top of that, I would have drank more water because I had a kidney transplant 21 years ago. I had a kidney transplant 20 years ago. I didn't realize the importance of drinking water. And now when you think about microplastics and how a lot of water is contaminated, understanding drinking water out of a glass bottle is extremely, and getting a filtration system on your house if you can, or something to that magnitude, to know that you taking in the correct amount of water and knowing that it's pure water and it's not tainted with those particular things.
Doctor, those are the physical things that we can ingest, but what about the mindset with this and how to handle this from a diagnosis and making a way to provide a better path for yourself?
Right, absolutely. Look, mindset is key. Like the saying goes, mind over matter, right? And, a little bit to share about my philosophy. I'm a DO, which stands for Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. And the philosophy they always impart on us is mind, spirit, and body. And as you know, the mind is essential. So without the mind being there, that impacts everything. Impacts, recovery. It impacts, even at the cellular level, they've found studies where, the lack of having a positive mindset does influence a lot your ability to heal, because the body does have an innate natural ability to heal itself. But it needs definitely to have all those three components there, especially the mind.
And Doc, I want to add to that, because when I was diagnosed with kidney disease, which was a genetic disorder, there was a certain level of fear and unsureness that I would ever, have a normal life again. My life was altered, but let alone come back and play basketball again. So I knew that the only way for my body to get to where it needed, my mind had to be right. So I had to stay positive, number one. And I couldn't feel sorry for myself and say, hey, I'm at the height of my career and all of a sudden I got to deal with this 30 years old NBA All-Star and Olympic champion, what have you. All these good things are happening, and then bam, I got to stop playing basketball. But immediately, I formulated my mind in knowing that, hey, I got to stay positive. I got to do what I got to do to stay on track, because I know my body is going to follow my mind. And eventually, keeping that mentality allowed me to get back on the court, making the adjustments I needed to make. Had the kidney transplant 3 years later, and got back on the court and won a world championship with the Miami Heat. But all that happened because of this.
Right.
Not because of, I got an organ, what have you, but it started here.
I want to say in terms of something that we need to overcome, I was a fighter pilot in the military, and it's much of the same mindset that you have, I have about, hey, there's nothing that's going to ever stop us. There's nothing that's ever going to stop me from what we're going to do. That can be a great advantage, but is it also a detriment, especially as men, that we ignore something that's happening to our body?
Well, unfortunately, and Doc, you can add to this, the statistics are what they are. We got almost, 60, almost 70% of men that don't get annual physicals at all. Okay. And then outside of that, as young men, we're told growing up, we're told to suck it up, be a man, and, that's far from the truth. You have to pay attention to the signs and symptoms of your body. It's no different. And I use this analogy quite a bit, especially with men, because they can relate to it. If you're driving your car to work and that check engine light comes on, okay, you're going to look at that red blinking check engine light, and you're going to say, well, damn, I got to take my car in because I got to get back and forth to work. Otherwise, it's going to conk out on me. Something's going to happen to my car if I don't take it in. So when you feel something wrong, and you haven't gone to the doctor in several years or gotten a checkup in several years, and then, like I said, there's some things where you're totally asymptomatic, colon cancer, prostate cancer, all these things, kidney disease. Some of them are asymptomatic until it's way too late. That's why it's important for you to kind of get out in front of it, and be proactive and prioritize getting an annual physical and getting those things checked out.
Doc, how do we get men to overcome that, hey, I'm going to take care of it, to make sure that we come to see you?
Definitely. So we definitely do have to keep spreading awareness as we're doing. And I really thank Zoe for taking the time to do this. This is wonderful. We need to keep spreading awareness. And look, we really need to listen to our loved ones, because look, who are the ones that really drag us as men, who drag us to the doctor's office? It's, it's your wife or your mother or, your sister. And we really just need to start paying attention more to ourselves. And we have to keep in mind, like, hey, if I don't take care of myself and something happens to me, it's not just you, it's your family's the one that ultimately pays the price too.
You guys, listen, and I'm speaking to the men directly that are listening to this. There's people that rely on your existence. Absolutely. There's people that rely on you being here. So you being selfish and doing what you have to do to take care of yourself, you're benefiting them more than anything, The long and short of it, you have to be an active participant. Nobody can do it for you. You have to do it yourself, because you have to be here. People rely on you being here, from that. And I know there's a certain level of fear of going to the doctor or finding something out. There's financial reasons why guys don't go to the doctor. There's embarrassment where they don't want to talk about some of the things that's going on because they're embarrassed. And then also, there's trust. They might not trust doc. They might not trust that this doc gonna have his best interest. But the latter is you can't do nothing. You know what I'm saying?
By the time you find out, it's gonna be a huge problem.
Exactly. So you got to do something. You got to do something. So I encourage men. I would not be here talking to you today if I did not go to the doctor. I would not be here talking to you today with all the things I got going on. And unfortunately, I got to take, a bunch of medication every day in order for me to live my life, but, I got 3 beautiful kids. I got an incredible woman in my life. I got to be here. I got a foundation to run where I got families that rely on me. I got business partners and what have you. I got people that rely on my existence. So I got to take care of myself.
On the genetic side of this, Alonzo, people in our communities and of our genetics are very high risk. Also in the Latin population, so many different things.
Black and brown.
That, we unfortunately have a higher risk of. Doctor, what can we do specifically in our communities to make sure that they get this word and actually execute a plan to stay in front of their health care?
And look, Zoe said it perfectly. You have to go every year, get your annual physicals. It all starts there since an early age. Even if you're completely healthy, even if you're in your 20s, always get your annual physicals every year. And any screenings that we need to do once you come of age, as long as you keep going, that won't get missed. Because if you're seeing a primary care provider who's responsible, who stays up to date with the literature, they're going to order, for example, the colon cancer screening, the PSA levels. That's something I do.
Especially if you're over the age of 45, 50.
Correct.
They're going to do that automatically.
Correct.
Good ones will. Now, there's another thing that we have to take into consideration. All doctors are medical practitioners. That means they practice medicine. That means they're not perfect at it. They practice it. So if you got to go and get a second opinion because you're not comfortable with the one that you have, and you can tell when you sit in that room if you're comfortable, if you've developed a relationship with your doctor, and if it's a good relationship, you can tell. If it's not, go to another doctor.
Exactly.
Get a second opinion. Something that I highly encourage.
Doctor, what about exercise with this? Obviously, Alonzo's a person with incredible genetics that took all of that and was able to execute it at the highest level. Clearly, most people don't have that God-given talent. But what can a person do on a regular, daily basis to use exercise to be a benefit for their health?
Absolutely. Look, so the rule of thumb is typically 30 minutes a day, at least 30 minutes a day. If you can do more, by all means, do more. At least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week of moderate aerobic activity. That's everyone's standard, should be doing that, unless you have conditions that prevent you. But doing that will increase your lifespan, believe it or not.
And I may add, just today, I don't run at the speed that I used to run. Right. I'm 55 years old. I had 5 knee surgeries, but I walk, so I'll walk 30 minutes to an hour. And I try to do that 4 or 5 times a week. And then I stretch, which is extreme. I think flexibility promotes circulation in the body as well, and then as we get older, we have a tendency to get tighter and we shrink when we get older, so flexibility is extremely important. I highly recommend that. Outside of that, muscles atrophy if you don't use them, okay? So lifting some weights, not heavy weights, 2 to maybe 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be strenuous. You don't have to be in there long. You got to understand that you have to help your body help you. Your body ain't going to help you if you're not trying to help you.
If you don't do anything with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's all a part of it. What Doc said is extremely important. And what I just said, it's about the level of consistency. You don't have to be in there long. We talked about that earlier. But you got to be consistent. And then if you're consistent, the body responds to what you're doing to it. Just like the body responds to the bad stuff that you might be doing to it. It'll respond really well to the good stuff that you're doing to it as well.
And the message that you're sending to our community with this, and the doctor and I were talking about this. Zoe, I feel that in many ways, you and I are kind of tied at the hip in the journey through what you have been through. Right. On my end of it, I was a fighter pilot. We were constantly training, constantly staying in shape to be able to pull G's. I turned into a competitive boxer later in life. I boxed in the Golden Gloves as a kid. But due to that and my flying, in the Air Force programs, I had every year to go for the cardio stress test, oxygen, the whole deal. And one of those times the doctor said, I see something doesn't look right. Turned out that even though my heart was performing at an incredibly high level, I had 2 blockages. And I'm a person that has unlikely to think that would have a triple bypass. But I did. Right. And therefore, on the other side of it, nothing ever happened to me. I never had a heart attack. I never had anything happen. But it was only because I was doing that every year. And exactly what both of you are preaching, it was discovered in a different way. But I think that's a universal thing to try to get people to come forward. And I certainly try concerning the heart, but any part of the body, whatever it is, to stay on top of it. And if you catch it early, you can do what you're doing.
Agreed. Just be proactive. It's as simple as that way as it pertains to your health. And then as you get older, as you get older, it requires a little bit more maintenance. Okay, you're not.
I try not to accept that.
With that unfortunately, Father Time is undefeated, my man. He really is. And if you're looking in your rearview mirror, you're driving, he's back there. He's sitting back there, and as you get older, he's catching up closer and closer to you, So, but again, you can't leave it to chance, just like you did not leave it to chance. You got to go to the doctor, get your annual physicals and what have you, and educate yourself, guys. Educate yourself on the things you need to do to take care of your body. Ask questions. Go to ChatGPT or whatever. All this AI now, you can get all the information that you need,
right,
in order to take care of you. But knowing what foods to eat to help circulation in your body, knowing what foods to eat to help give you energy, different teas are good for you and what have you, to help with circulation in your body, help with your digestive system and what have you. It's just so many different things that you can explore, and also you can consult dietitians and what have you, to know what type of diet that works for you, which I've done all of those things, So if you want to live, if you enjoy life and you want to live and you know that people are here counting on you to be around, do your job as men and take care of yourself.
Doc, talk about the PSA test and just how important it is. Yeah. Zoe spoke briefly about that. And ask about it when you go to see your general practitioner.
Yes, absolutely. So it's an extremely important test. First of all, let's get that out there. As we've seen, even ex-President Joe Biden got diagnosed with prostate cancer, which, like Zoe said earlier, should have been caught earlier. But that's basically a screening test. And in layman's terms, what it is, it's a protein that gets secreted by the prostate gland. But whenever there's malignant tissue present, that malignant tissue will secrete more of it. So you'll detect higher concentrations in the blood. So once you see that, then that's a red flag, essentially. But that screening test depends, depending on the risk factors. If you're average risk, it's recommended by the American Cancer Society to start screening at age 50. Now, if your risk is higher, then you should start earlier, even as early as 40.
And what determines if your risk is higher?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So look, studies show that men of color, higher risk. And definitely if you have a first degree family history, meaning like your father or your brother.
My grandfather and my father had prostate cancer.
Okay. So with that family history, that already puts you in the higher risk
and
bucket.
Another thing, a lot of people don't know their family history because they don't ask the questions. Right. They don't have those conversations at all, so they don't know.
Yep. And it should be checked once a year. And look, and just because it comes back high.
And it's a blood test. A lot of people.
Yes.
A lot of people think.
Confused.
Don't get it confused. It's not that invasive. It's not the finger.
Correct.
It's a blood test. It's a blood test. So it's not as invasive. And I understand how uncomfortable guys are when it comes to that. Yes, I get it. But you got to do what you got to do, man. Right. But it's a blood test, you get your PSA check, you get it back in a couple of days.
And look, and even when it comes back a little high, it doesn't automatically mean, it's cancer. Because there's benign conditions that cause it too, like prostatitis, which is just inflammation of the prostate. But like Zoe said, but you have to be on top of your health. You have to be checking with your doctor frequently to make sure that you get it caught early, if that's what it is.
And another one, after age 45, you should start considering getting colonoscopies. 45, 50, right?
Well, the guidelines say you should start at 45 if you're average risk. Yeah. Average risk meaning there's no family history. But if there's a family history, meaning a first-degree relative, right? So parents or siblings, then you should always screen 10 years before their first diagnosis. So for example, let's say some person said, my father was diagnosed with colon cancer at age 45, then that person should be screening at age 35.
Right. Wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. Well,
Yep.
Right. So, that's extremely important. And, I had my colonoscopy done. It was probably the best nap I ever took in my life. I woke up very rested and everything.
I don't know if we could put this on television, but I tell our urologists before they go, you are about to go where no man has gone before. All right, so if we went to your home today and opened a refrigerator, what would we see?
A lot of veggies. You'll see a lot of veggies, and then you'll see a lot of fruit in there as well, because I juice a lot. And do a lot of smoothies in the morning. as well. You'll see some eggs as well. Got to have a little bit of protein. I'm not a big chicken guy. I don't eat chicken. I stopped that a long time ago, but I eat lean grass-fed meat and I eat fish. So you'll probably see that. And you see a whole lot of coconut water because I got to stay hydrated. Coconut water is amazing. The low in sugar, coconut water.
Here at Baptist Health, they all want to know about the smoothie and the recipe that you use. If there's not a copyright or trademark on that, we would like to know what's in it.
Listen, it's pretty simple. It's a berry smoothie, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries, a little bit of banana and coconut water, and I use my Ninja. And I make the smoothie and then throw just a little bit of ice in there, and there it is. There you have it. Sometimes I might put a little green in there. I might put a little kale in there, and what have you, but it's the best in the morning because you got to think about it, throughout the course of the day. You don't eat that much fruit, and the benefit of being able to just drink it down in the morning is incredible, because it's huge for getting rid of antioxidants in the body, So I try to do that every morning, and it helps with the digestive system as
Lots of fiber.
Lots of fiber.
Okay, Doc. When we open your refrigerator, what do we see?
Definitely look eggs, but look. Always, when you're gonna get eggs, you have to get the pasture raised.
Pasture raised.
I don't know.
I have those too.
That's
the ones I get.
Those are the ones you want. Yeah.
Organic pasture raised.
Organic pasture raised. Those are the ones where the hens are out in the pasture, eating their natural diet.
Very
so
much
you'll see those types of eggs in my fridge. You'll see also a variety of fruits, vegetables as well. Yep. And then also wild caught salmon has to be wild caught, not the farm raised.
Not the farm raised.
Yep. And then any beef I have is grass fed.
Yep.
Has to be grass fed.
Same here.
Yep.
What did you have to give up that it was really hard for you to do that?
I gave up a lot. Dairy. Dairy was hard, man, because I was a big cheese guy. And then I stopped. I just stopped cold turkey, because I realized how much dairy causes so much inflammation in the body and mucus. And obviously with a lot of mucus comes, congestions and diseases and what have you. It carries that from that perspective, So I did my due diligence and understanding the impact that dairy has on your body. So now if I got to drink milk, my coffee is almond milk. And that's about it. But I don't eat cheese anymore. I don't eat any type of cheese. And like I said, the only milk I eat is maybe coconut milk or almond milk from that perspective. It was hard giving up cheese. But let me tell you what, I've noticed a difference in my body. And I dropped weight too, immediately. I dropped a lot of weight from that perspective.
I find that when you give something up, after a while, it becomes a daily habit.
Oh, very much so.
Talked about the mind, getting the mind in the right spot. Yeah. Doctor, when your patients do come to see you and they need to give something up, I always say being away from the doctor is the actual homework assignment, seeing you is the test. What do you tell us?
To give up?
Yeah, well, and when you make a determination that they really need to give this up, and it may be very difficult.
Oh, absolutely. Especially like here in America, they need to give up the processed sugar, sweets. I see that all the time. And not just food, but look, a lot of people drink sodas.
Oh, those are the worst. Those are the worst.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't do that either, by the way.
Yes.
I don't drink any sodas.
Yeah. In the Latin community,
especially in the
white rice.
White rice,
white rice,
a lot of
rice,
carbohydrates, excess carbohydrates.
And that's why there's a lot of diabetes going around, especially in the African American community.
Yes.
We lead in those statistics as well, diabetes and heart disease and high cholesterol and things of those nature, all because of diet. I mean, that's what it comes down to, a diet, and if we were a little bit more knowledgeable on what we put in our bodies, it would make a world of difference in our health. It really would,
Absolutely.
So, give us your final locker room speech. We got to go out. It's game 7 in the finals, which I know our Heat will be in next year. No, we don't need 7 games. We only need 4.
Yes.
So there we go to get to 16. What's your message?
Well, I'm going to echo this. Sedentary is not good. Sitting still is not good. Move your body. Movement is extremely important. We talked about working out from that perspective, moving, walking, those things. Maybe go to the gym, if you have the capability of doing that, but we live in a tropical environment. Get out, walk, enjoy the outside from that perspective. Outside of that, educate yourself on the things that you put in your body on a regular basis and look at the benefits of it long-term or the detriment of it long-term from that perspective. And last but not least, get an annual physical once a year. Please, everybody, women, men, do it, please. Because the statistics show, especially men of color, they don't do it. They don't go to the doctor. They don't go until it's too late. Men don't go until it's too late. That narrative has to change. It really does, So God bless you all and take charge of your health.
1,000%. Doctor, when people do come to see you and they're sitting across from you, you have the ability to make a diagnosis to send them in a proper direction for specific care.
Absolutely, we do. And it all starts, like Zoe said, with the annual physical. And that first visit can give us a lot of information about someone. But unless you actually go and the physician actually sees you, no one will know. So it's important for people to go.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks to both of you. Zoe, it's always great to see you. We haven't seen each other for a while, but to reconnect.
Yep.
Doctor, thank you for your service to our community and the community. People don't realize the greatest things you've done in our community aren't on the basketball court, but are with our young people who are now growing into adults and doing it in a responsible way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation with both of you, and thanks for sharing this insight with our audience. Remember, viewers, be sure to hit the subscribe button on our channel here to keep up with the latest health and wellness information and advice from our experts. Thanks for being with us.
Find additional valuable health and wellness information on our resource blog at baptisthealth.net/news. And be sure to interact with us on our social media channels for live and upcoming events. Baptist Health Talk is brought to you by Baptist Health, the warmer side of care.